Okay, I'm currently working on commercial mortgage-backed securities transactions and thinking about transferring to M&A. You mentioned that we should keep an eye on all the updates in the industry. Do you have any suggestions or resources, organizations I could join to keep myself apprised of new trends in M&A? Also, how transferable do you think my experiences are in commercial mortgage-backed securities transactions when transferred to M&A? We focus mostly on mortgage-backed securitization. I feel it really has nothing to do with M&A, but it's more related to real estate. Okay, so if I was in doing commercial mortgage-backed securities transactions and thinking about transferring, I don't know why you would want to transfer, but maybe it's because you're worried that it's going to slow down, or maybe you just don't like it very much. There's a lot of, and I don't know how long you've been doing it as well, so those kind of all would be relevant to your question. But I do think that to learn about M&A, there's lots of organizations that do it. Pretty much whatever your practice area is, there's going to be all sorts of organizations that have something to do with it. So you can look up whatever your practice area is and do searches for organizations in that practice area and find it. A huge practice area. There's a lot of stuff about that. Now, you raise a good question, transferring to M&A from that practice area. That is what you're talking about doing, is you're talking about transferring from essentially one transactional practice area to another transactional practice area, which is a lot easier than if you were doing, say, commercial litigation and trying to transfer to M&A. So you're in a transactional practice area, and that's a huge start. And so it's going to be much easier for you to transfer, if you want to do transfer from that practice area to essentially another practice area. Now, you have a bunch of options. Is that you're probably at a 4 firm, which I would say would be like an AmLaw 100 or something, a big firm, and you're doing that practice. And so 4 firms would be ones where they would have very discrete, many times, practice areas, meaning they'll have people doing something just like you're doing, commercial mortgage-backed securities, and that's it. So that would be a big firm. The largest firms do things like that. And they do practice areas that are very specified, because the idea is that attorneys that are specialized can charge more money and clients get better value and better service. And so that's how the law firms think about it. And so they typically, those are going to be in big cities. And that's so probably at a 4 firm doing. Now, what I would say is there's 5 firms that probably also do that, and 4 firms, but there's 3 firms probably that do the practice area in too. But if they do that, when you start getting into smaller firms will mix it up. So they may do securities and M&A. Attorneys literally could do both, securities and M&A, or securities and real estate, or M&A and general corporate. Just they mix things up because they don't have the clients that are as large that are demanding that specialization. So if you are working in a market like Palo Alto or New York or Chicago, you may be doing a very discrete practice area. But if you were to go and work at a big firm in, say, Cleveland or Minneapolis, the attorneys might do a bunch of different things, or a smaller firm in one of those markets. They might do a bunch of different things. So your question is, how would I switch over? You have a couple options. The other thing you can do too is you could also go to another 4 firm where you could do that and M&A in other practice areas, because in firms without clients could hire you to do that, and then you could get experience in their general corporate department, which might do a bunch of different things. Instead of just commercial mortgage-backed securities, they might do that and a bunch of different things. So if I was you searching, what I would do is I probably would look for firms where you could sell yourself based on having that experience, but also work in other practice areas as well. So that would mean you could go to a 4 firm potentially in your own market, or in a smaller market. In a smaller market, a 4 firm is likely to do different things. Or you could go to a 3 firm or a smaller firms. That's how I would do it. One of the things that's nice about your practice area is there's not a ton of firms that do it, meaning I'm sure you know who all your competitors are. And if you get experience in something like that, you're going to be very marketable probably throughout your whole career, because the more specialized you get, better off it would be. But M&A is also a very good practice area, obviously, and you could certainly switch to that. But anytime you're trying to switch within corporate, it can be difficult to do sometimes if you're trying to go to a firm that's of the same quality, and that's up to you. Most firms that are looking for M&A people are going to want to hire someone that his primary experience is in M&A, and then they're not going to have to train, just as they probably would. It would be very difficult for your firm. Your firm would probably be quite unwilling to hire someone to do commercial mortgage-backed securities who was coming from M&A. I hope that answers your question. It doesn't, you're right, it doesn't have really anything to do with M&A. It's a completely different practice area, but that's how I would go about it, is I would try to find a firm where there's more corporate generalist as opposed to corporate specialist. And then the net experience could go in there. And its securitization is related, could be more related to real estate, but there's also other types of securitization. People securitize auto leases and all sorts of things.